Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Money's Talks. This is a podcast by Money's Magazine and powered by AMVS Capital. My name is Ana Maria Meshkurti, and I'm your host for this podcast. And today we're honored to have Anu Bhardwaj, who is an amazing entrepreneur. We've been following her and her journey, and we are so excited that she's here today with us. Thank you so much, Anu, for coming on the podcast and for finding the time. We know you are so busy traveling around the world and doing amazing things, which we're going to learn just in a minute. For everyone out there, Anu, she's the founder and CEO of SHEQONOMI, who is the world's first suite of mobile apps focused on women-centric podcasts targeting the bottom billion. So as you know, she's the perfect person to be on a podcast. I think she's probably like the most experienced one. So thank you so much, Anu. As is a tradition in this podcast, we'd love to learn about you, your journey from you, instead of us saying it all and asking you questions. So please tell us really in a rough way when you started, what were you doing in the beginning and how did you come up with this business and how come you are in this stage now?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I've been waiting for this for I don't know how many months, and it's so great to see your journey all these months, and we're finally here. So I'm thrilled to share this with all of you today, and especially how this all happened. So SHEQONOMI was birthed, I want to say, almost a decade ago. I had a company called Women Investing and Women Digital, still have that company. And Women Investing Women Digital used to do events all over the world, big conferences, small roundtables for women trying to access capital. We had a lot of content. We did social media. It was an organization that really wanted to get more female founders funded, but we need to bring more women investors to the table. And the last event that we did was at the Nordic Stock Exchange at NASDAQ in Sweden, and we had about 1,400 women attending. And after this event ended, I said, this is great. We had a wonderful turnout, but if only we had a digital presence, if only we had podcasts, if only we had video content, imagine how much further we could have taken this message. And we started to invite that small group of women to our Facebook page, Women Investing in Women Digital. And at the time, we invited 500 people just to see, who was interested and what they were interested in. That page grew to about 50,000 followers. And then we started to get an idea on Facebook, like who were these followers? Where were they coming from? We found out it was mostly millennials. And then we decided to create a radio show, Women Investing in Women and Girls. And this radio show, the co-host was my 14-year-old babysitter. The nanny was the producer. And my 2.5-year-old would say, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. And every Saturday morning, we would call different female funders. We called Intel Women and Girls. We called UN Women, UNICEF. We even had Princess Rima with her daughter on air. Wow. We had the former Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden with her granddaughter on air. So the girls were asking the hard questions. And a few years later, everybody left because they went off to college. One got into Stanford, one got into Wharton, one got into Cambridge. And my little one, she ended up starting Crypto for Kids and gave her keynote at the UN when she was 7.5. And so this journey was amazing because we got all these girls role models, and they became role models. And when COVID happened, I was homeschooling my daughter, Arya, and we decided we were going to work on a project together. The long story, simplified, was that we were at the kitchen table and we decided we were going to start this podcast listening app for other women and girls to listen and learn, because in the pandemic, everything shut down. And there were so many people that didn't have access to Wi-Fi or Zoom School or Google Classroom. So we decided we were going to create an app where anyone from anywhere can listen and learn. So we started building on 2G phones. And then that turned into 3G, 4G, and 5G phones with $1 million in grants that we won. And it was all because of these ideas and innovations that we came across. And more importantly, the belief that we can do anything. as women and girls, right? They watched it from day one. And these apps have now been created, and we're here now as a
Wow.
result.
That is impressive. We need your daughter on the podcast also, definitely. This is so I'm shocked. I love it how you have also involved your daughter like from such a young age. Um, how did you think about that, and did you get any feedback on it? I'm sure some people, people always have opinions, right? Like, oh, isn't she too young, or why is she on this show, or and then her going on and doing this kind of business, right, at such a young age, and then speaking at the UN. I mean, that's incredible. Like, I would love to know. I'm sure like many mothers out there also would want to know more about this.
So she didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
And Arya was taken from the time, I don't know, her first conference was a Women in Private Equity Summit at the Half Moon Bay Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco. So her father came with us and he took care of her while I went to the conference. And he said, there's going to be many more of these. And many times I would take friends, I would take, we would have help when we would travel to the Middle East, when we would travel to Asia, Europe. So she grew up watching all of these role models. There was nothing that she couldn't do. And then she started to develop this confidence at a young age. And she's like, yeah, that's easy. Like, let's figure it out. And I think the most important thing, though, as a mom, is to get her comfortable with failure. And knowing that sometimes things don't always work the way you plan, but how do you handle that from a young age? And Arya is a skier now. She's a black diamond. She jumps off of cliffs and she does some very intense skiing. And she's a fearless soul. I can't even do that. But I'm learning from her now. I think it just went to the extreme. And she has an amazing dad as well. And so he tells her that she can do whatever she wants to do. And so I think it really takes effort on both of us, and also the ability to listen, especially if your child has ideas and they want to try something. It's to give them that encouragement to say, yeah, you can do it. Let's try. Let's see. Maybe it'll work. And that's all I did, is I listened to her and it worked.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to be Arya now. Like, she's like, I can't believe she's a black diamond skier. That's so hard for everybody out there who has never skied. This is like super the hardest, I think, of all. Yeah, that's really impressive. I want to talk a little bit more about the company, and because you mentioned also you really reached out to women in remote areas, in underserved areas. You are really like trying to inspire, right, everyone. With the podcast, can you tell us a little bit two sides, like how do you manage to reach out to all these women out there, and also if someone is having a podcast like us, out there, how can they collaborate with you? What are the opportunities, to be part of this movement, I would say?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did is we reached out to women initially who had their own podcasts. Many of you, like even yourself, have started your own podcast. And one of the biggest challenges that I hear from every single person is, I would like more listeners. I would like to get my podcast out there to not just my LinkedIn group, not just my Instagram, not just my Facebook. I want people from everywhere to be able to have access. And the podcasts that are out there right now, and I'm saying this to everyone that's listening, if you want your podcast to go out to smartphones only, how many people on the planet do you think can afford data plans? How many people do you think can afford smartphones? And then think of all those people that are living on less than $5 a day, and ask yourself that question again. Because there may be some people out there that could listen to what I have to say or what you have to say, and it could change their life. But they're just never going to get access. So that's the question that we started with from day one, is everybody should have that access. So we built on 2G, we built on 3G, 4G, 5G. We are now going into $10 phones, $30 smartphones, $100 laptops. So if any of you are thinking of starting a podcast, please contact me, because I will build your podcast so that it goes onto all devices from day one. Because that's the mindset we need to start thinking about. Because if we keep saying we're going to create a podcast, we're going to get all these amazing features, and we're going to get all these amazing sound effects and music and this and that, it's wonderful. Not everybody's going to have access to that. They might just want to hear what you have to say. And what's also interesting is in the next iteration, and I'm going to tell you this, in the next 18 to 36 months, we're going to have podcasts that are created in Arabic, in Bengali, in Spanish, that are then going to be converted into English, and we're finally going to listen to what these people have to say.
Wow.
These women have been shut out. We don't know what they want. We don't know what they need. We don't know what they're doing. They may have the most innovative solutions for women's health or childcare or whatever, education. We have no idea of knowing. And think of all those refugees that are out there. What do they have to say? I'm really curious what they have to say. So I think it's about time in our world that we need to start not only thinking about what content is going where, but also whose content do we need to really be listening to.
Absolutely. Right? That's very beautiful. That's a beautiful saying, actually. We should coin that definitely and give you the right, of course. Like, no, that's a great saying. And also, I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, we don't think like that, right? We just think, oh, let's make the podcast, put it on the platforms that are available out there, just like everyone else. And then, hopefully the right people that need to listen to this, will listen to it. But it's true that there is so many people out there, not even on the internet, right, today, and not connected, unfortunately, that needs to hear these stories, probably more than many of us, because if you have so much information going, sometimes you also get lost on what you want to hear and so on. That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that, and I hope everybody out there that has a podcast strongly reach out to Anu, and we will obviously do the same and try to get this to all accessible platforms out there. Now, I know that your experience also comes in the beginning, right, from the private equity space, investment space. So we would love to learn a little bit more about that life, if one can say, because that's a very interesting mix that you have, right? So now you're an entrepreneur, and also, I guess, you raised for your company, or you got investment, or you bootstrapped anyway. But at the same time, before, right, you were the person sitting on the other side and looking at these deals. So people are always curious as entrepreneurs, how do investors like yourself, or people in those chairs, how do they look at deals? How does that work? How can we get to people like you? So if you could tell us a little bit about that life, let's say, and remove the entrepreneur cap for now.
Oh, I would love to go back to that life. It was so much easier than where I am now. Being an entrepreneur, a lot of this you have to learn by trial and error. Nothing is a set path. It's constantly figuring things out. The role that I was in before, so I was a Fulbright scholar to IIT Mumbai.
Wow.
And this happened back in 2008 when the financial crisis happened.
Okay.
And the study that I was looking at was high growth women entrepreneurs in India, which ultimately turned into a global benchmark on women in private equity. Because when the financial crisis happened, I was looking at female investors. Where are they, and why are there so few of us getting funded? And this story has been going on for almost 2 decades now. That's the reality of the situation. We all know this, but why? And so when I got into the space, I learned very quickly, because I dove straight into the private equity conferences that I was attending and trying to see what wasn't working and why. And then when I finished my Fulbright year, I decided to be my own entrepreneur, be my own boss. And I started working with private equity funds that were trying to build relationships in Scandinavia and the Middle East. I did my MBA at the Stockholm School of Economics. I speak Swedish, spent a lot of time in the Gulf. I grew up in India, studied 8 languages. I don't know. It just happened. Everything just happened very quickly and very fast. And before I knew what was going on, I ended up deciding to work with the US Department of Commerce. And they were doing road shows on taking US fund managers into Scandinavia and the Middle East to access capital at the time for their funds. And this was a new model. They were just getting started. And we ended up replicating this model to the Middle East. They ended up going to Switzerland and Latin America and so on and so forth. But this was my way of getting into the private equity industry from ground zero, from Fulbright onwards, seeing how sovereign funds invest, pension funds invest, family offices invest, fund of funds invest. And the more you do it, the more easier it becomes, and you start to understand what people are looking for. And I used to say, it's all about what they want. Your product may be amazing, but it's all about that allocation. What is it they're looking for? And as you start to get to know your customer better, you know what they're looking for. So this was the private equity world, similar to like what's happening in the venture space. They're looking for something very specific. And if that happens to be you, great. But you kind of want to build your business as much as you can to really know your value and know your worth before you start to take a dollar from them, because it's a very costly dollar. And the higher you go and the more you prove, the less risky it is for them, and the better it is for your valuation, and so on and so forth. Yourself, you understand what your business is really worth. And so back in the day when I was creating, doing private equity work, a lot of this was trial and error. And I was very lucky to have some of the best fund managers in the Middle East working with me. Many of them were women. Same with Scandinavia, because I had this community of women in private equity. Worked out beautifully. But again, it's all relationship based. So if people want to help you, they will. Doesn't matter how long you're in the business. And that's what I learned from this, is it's very much relationship oriented.
Wow, that's very impressive also that you did that straight, after the first experience, and then you just got into it. Normally people would work somewhere, right, for some time, and then so it's nice to see that this path is also possible, or at least you can carve somehow, right, your own way of doing it. That's very, very cool. And now, if you can tell us a little bit more now as an entrepreneur, a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, right? Everybody's like, yeah, I want to. It became like a trend at some point. Then you see everybody's, LinkedIn's like, I'm CEO of this, etc. So some people were saying, oh, how would we figure out who is really like full on entrepreneurship way, or who is also like just having it like as a side thing and so on. But not everybody understands what you said, like how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur, and how many things you have to sacrifice, and how focused you have to be on believing also in what you're doing, and maybe sometimes the disappointments, right, that come with it. And on top of this, you are a woman entrepreneur, which becomes more difficult. And then you are also a mother, which I guess is making it also more difficult. So can you tell us a little bit about that, like some of the maybe difficulties and also some of the joys of this road that you've taken?
I heard before when I started this that it's a roller coaster. And some people would say, never do it again. If I had known, like this is one of these things where you really have to have a stomach for it. And there's going to be things that are always not working as planned. And it gets more complicated when you have little ones, because the business is a baby in itself at the same time. And it's like always needing something. And even though I'm planning constantly, I'm like, well, there's another 50 new relationships that I haven't even addressed yet. Like I've gotten to the first 25, now I have another 50. Wow. And it's a constant, like, you're growing, you're scaling, you're needing to raise capital. You have to pay people that are working with you, and they have families and they have responsibilities, and it just gets more and more responsibilities. And so there's several different types of entrepreneurs. One is, I'm doing this business, it's a great business. The business I had before, working with private equity fund managers, comfortable. You make money, you can, you travel when you need to travel. It's always luxury. It's awesome. You're dealing with very smart people all the time. It's a great lifestyle business. But will that business ever get you to changing the world or changing 1 billion lives? It's a different kind of business. So if you kept doing that business over and over again, you go to the same parties, you go to the same networking events. It's the same old World Economic Forum, con, UNGA, same circuit. You see the same people over and over again. But at the same time, those people that are really the ones that are in need of help and support, are you doing anything to help their lives? And that's something that I was like, I would stay up for them. I would do this for them. I would spend the next 5 years of my life probably working 15 to 20 hours a day for them, because there's no way out. And when you think about it from that standpoint, it becomes a mission. It's not just a vision, it's a mission. And it's a reason why you keep going when it doesn't get easier. And no matter what people say, because you've gone so far and you've committed. And then after you make a commitment, after like 2 or 3 years, you can't say, oh, I'm done now. You've just given 2 or 3 years of your life, and it's still another 3 years. Like, you have to have that in you to keep going. And with that said, I'm getting close to a decade. And I say this to people, like, you have to know your why so well. And even when people don't believe in you, and even when people make it difficult for you, you have to have everything in your power to say, this is not about me. This is about them. And just keep going every day.
That's also very brave, right? Because you gave up like a life where you could have continued, and everything could have continued the same and just done that. Many people do that, right? But you really kind of found like, no, I need to do this and I need to commit myself to it. And then, like you say, once you're in it, you cannot just like walk away and say, okay, done. So what is your vision for it? So how do you see the company moving forward? Like, what's kind of your final goal with it? And then maybe what do you want to do next?
The vision for this is to give every woman a voice. Everybody deserves a chance. I mean, there's so many women that have been prohibited. And if you think about my grandmother's generation or women before this, it's like, were they given an education? Were they given that opportunity? And there's so many more women that are in that same situation. But more importantly, they need to be heard. And we're talking about these SDGs. Everyone's spending all this money on these SDGs, and you have half the world's population not included in the conversation. Like, this does not make sense to me. Like, once you start including people, maybe they can help you and we move these SDGs forward. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Like, the people that need it the most can also help. And if they need it so badly, then maybe we should hear what they have to say. So the vision for this is, let's start with the women, because if we start with the women, you're going to get it to the children. There you go. It's 2 out of 3, right? So if you can do that, then we've got a whole force of people that haven't been mobilized yet. Just give them a chance, give them the tools and the technology. So this week or next week, and I'm going to announce this now because I don't know when this is going to air, I have just built SHEQONOMI. Since COVID, we built it on Android, iOS. You can download it on Apple Store. You can download it on Google Play Store. You can also download it on KaiOS, which works on low-cost mobile devices that are now in 175 countries. We've proven it all over Africa, all over the Middle East, Asia, the Caribbean islands, Latin America. It's there. We've had the downloads. And now we're about to announce the cloud phone. These are 4G Nokia phones. And these phones can go all over Africa, all over India. $40 feature phones, and they're beautiful. So once we announce the cloud phone, we get it to a price point that anyone can afford. Low-cost devices that are slick. You may even want them. Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
That's the next steps. That's the vision, is it should be affordable, accessible, and inclusive. And why are we not there already? It's 2024. It's almost 2025. So the vision is, if we can get it to these people by 2025, many of them are women and girls. COVID happened. We left a lot of people out. Now it's time to bring them in and really talk about digital transformation, really talk about SDGs when we have everyone at the table, instead of talking about it when they're not there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot believe it's already 2025. That's a good reminder that we need to like move faster with everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're right. Like, why aren't we having people online in this day and age, as they say? Absolutely. That's so nice. Thank you so much, Anu. You're so inspiring. As our time is coming to an end, I would love a message for everyone out there. Whatever message you want people to, if people are just listening to this part, you want them to walk away. It can be for anything, just life in general, career, economy, anything that you believe people need to remember this.
Yes. So your voice matters, and if you want to be heard, and you already have a podcast, check us out. Um, Listen on podcasthers.com. Check out that link, and you'll see all like 5,000 podcasts in 62 languages, all devices. I would love for you to share your voice or listen to what's already there on the platform. And yeah, please reach out if you need anything.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna. It was such a pleasure to have you. And we look forward to continue following you in the journey, and obviously to listen to all the podcasts that are out there already. Thank you so much.
Thank you.